I am not a conspiracy theorist by nature. Conspiracies can be dangerous. The invention of the internet has enabled conspiracy theory to instantly reach the minds of the layman, to the inside of educated and, dare I say, uneducated heads who choose to suck up unproven and dubious thoughts and opinions created by very intelligent people who have found a path on which to construct an ideology based on absolutely zero evidence. And I'm afraid, against the will of my own moral compass, I am going to attempt to do just that.
Mission largely accomplished. For now, I want to thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank all the wonderful staff of the House of Commons. I want to thank all my friends and colleagues. I want to thank my rival friend opposite, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank everybody here, and hasta la vista, baby. Thank you.
Why did he say that? His final words of his final speech at the dispatch box as Prime Minister, and he ends it with a quote from Terminator 2.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Most of us remember that iconic piece of dialogue, and as we recall that Spanish notification of goodbye, we somehow also instantly recall Big Arnie's other famous piece of dialogue.
I'll be back.
Behind Johnson's hideous exterior, there lies a complex tactician who knows exactly what's going down, and instead of banging heads together, trying to work out ways of pulling the UK out of the quagmire of economic Armageddon, he was instead creating a strategy of how to get his sorry ass back behind the door at number 10. He realised his time was up, and he also knew that we, the British public, would connect hasta la vista with...
I'll be back.
Now, I'm going to ask you all a rhetorical question, but if you want to answer, there is a comment section below. What lengths would you go to so that you could be guaranteed an extra, on top of whatever salary you're making right now, an extra 115 grand a year? And I'll tell you what, let's throw in some personal security and a chauffeur-driven Bentley for the rest of your life.
Problem with your plan, it's going to push people into
please let Liz Truss answer. Please let her answer.
When inflation gets out of control, interest rates go up.
Rishi Sunak, please let Liz Truss answer.
I don't accept those points.
Could it be possible that Liz Truss was asked that same question, but not in a rhetorical sense? Sitting down with Bojo, and yes, the guy that just stabbed him in the back, fishy dishy Sunak, before they declare political bankruptcy within the confines of a hardwood panelled, sepia illuminated room surrounded by the ambience of a crackling fire, warming and melting the ice cubes, tinkling inside the crystal-cut old-fashioned tumblers containing what we Scots call the water of life. Now, I don't need to stand here and mull over the career of Liz Truss, or how she was president of Oxford University Liberal Democrats campaigning to legalise cannabis and the abolition of the monarchy, or how she worked for the almighty Shell after graduating from Oxford in 1996, when she also joined the Tory party. Good move, Liz. Or even how she campaigned vigorously to stay in the EU. And I could go on, but like I said, I don't want to mull over her past credentials, but I do believe that you can get the gist of Liz Truss. So here's another question. Whether it is rhetorical or not, I will leave that up to you. Did she answer that question while sipping on a single malt with a yes, I will do anything?
Hi, a great show, by the way.
Thank you.
Let me just say first, I am a Tory party member, and my dad was a constituency chairman. And we support Boris, and I'd say, in my estimate, 80% of the members support Boris. So that's where we're at. And our perspective is different to, the media perspective, the markets. Both my daughters work in the city. There's a lot of AI algorithms coming from abroad, tampering with the markets. Now, we can't let the markets and the media run our country. It's a democracy. We are the voters, and we support Boris. So we want Boris back, and Boris has the best chance of winning the general election next time. So Rishi's not going to win it. Rishi's not even British, in most people's opinion. I'm just saying, having a British passport doesn't mean you're a true English patriot who loves England. Boris loves England, and Rishi Sunak will be decimated if he leads the Tories into the election. I'm just telling you what Tory voters believe. He will be decimated. He didn't even get barely 40% of Tory members, let alone the electorate.
What do you think Rishi Sunak could do to prove his love of the country, Jerry?
Nothing, because he will lose 80% to 20% if he stands in any vote against the electorate.
Is the real problem here, Jerry, that Rishi Sunak is a brown man and you don't trust him at the top of this country?
Well, could you imagine him going to the Scottish Nationalists and being the Prime Minister of the Scottish Nationalists? Could you imagine me becoming the Prime Minister of Pakistan or Saudi Arabia? No, these things matter. I'm sorry you don't like it, but this is predominantly, we're talking about England, right? 85% of the English people, yes, are white English people, and they want to see a Prime Minister that reflects them. It's like, if I can't just go to India and be the president there, can I? Crisis,
I think
right?
you're losing this argument, Jerry. I think you are fundamentally a racist, and it's absolutely fascinating to me to hear that you and other Tory party members think like this.
The grapevine of the National Tory Party membership is tightly woven. Word gets around quick, and when the necessary narrative is initiated by their golden buffoon, the tribal instinct kicks in, and it kicks in fast. The majority of Tory MPs knew that Truss would be a disaster. Most of the so-called impartial media platforms had strong misgivings. Economists from all sides of the political fence were scratching their heads at the thought of Truss and the probability of her winning the leadership contest. And the public? Well, we had no say in the matter. You see, that's democracy. So on September the 6th, 2022, Liz Truss was finally voted in by 57% of Tory grapevine members, just like Jerry, becoming Britain's 56th Prime Minister. She immediately appoints her close friend and fellow Johnson Cabinet member Kwasi Kwarteng to the second highest office in the land. And together, with the metaphorical white coats wrapped around their euphoric bodies, enter the laboratory of numbers 10 and 11 Downing Street to begin the experiment.
When I sit in the House of Commons, I listen to debates in the House of Commons. And if you listen to those debates, you would think that Britain was a little island on the other side of Mars. There's no international context at all. And we're saying, look, we've got to wake up and look around the world, look at successful economies around the world, in Brazil, in China, in India, places like that, and see what we can learn from them. We have, and the public agrees with this, we have created a culture in which people can, as a lifestyle, opt not to work. It's quite acceptable nowadays and possible to decide never to work. And at the same time, people who are in work are very highly taxed. I mean, I would love to ask a member of someone on the left, is it not the case, do you, hypothetically, believe that everyone is on benefits is really trying, to get into work? I don't know whether, I mean, I've been around a Chinese factory, and I can tell you that they time absolutely every single thing, that you could ever do, any process. And they have to do a certain job in an hour. And if they do it in 58 minutes, they get 2 free minutes in which they can just sit down. And so, I cannot claim to have, spent 12 hours doing very heavy manual labor. I mean, that's very demanding.
Brittania Unleashed is a book which was published round about the same time as that clip you just saw, 2012. The book was written by Liz Truss, Kwasi Kwarteng, Dominic Raab, Priti Patel and Chris Skidmore, Tory party rising stars of the teenies who envisaged a different and radical approach to business and economics. That approach, that dream of which those who we can now refer to as the infamous five, was now eventually, after 10 years of waiting in the wings, able to be thrust upon the British public without a mandate and, to put it bluntly, without a fucking clue. Whilst all this was going on, Bojo and Fishy had retreated, vanished, and the plan was in motion. Sunak was now able to let someone else fill his car up with petrol, and Bojo was sunning it up in the Caribbean with the recently acquired wife and offspring. The waiting game had begun. On the 23rd of September 2022, less than 1 month in office, Truss and Kwarteng presented their mini-budget. Step 1 of the Brittania Unleashed experiment, and within minutes the shit hit the fan. The city went into chaos, and although I cannot prove or confirm a word of what I am telling you, it's only a theory, but I can almost guarantee that Fishy, Sunak and Bojo were popping corks, munching the 100mg Viagra given to them by their wives last Christmas, jumping and pumping, calling each other on their mobiles, trying to decide who was going to be PM. I wouldn't put it past them. And I can imagine that drunken game of cyber eeny meeny miny mo was being played out within the invisible ether of their cross-Atlantic phone call.
How many people voted for your plan?
What do you mean by that?
Are you absolutely committed to abolishing the 45p tax rate for the wealthiest people in the country?
Yes. And it is part, Laura, it is part of an overall package of making our tax system simpler and lower.
Can I ask you, Prime Minister, did you discuss scrapping the top rate with your whole cabinet?
No. No, we didn't. It was a decision that the Chancellor made.
The experiment failed. No. That's not true. Let's put it this way. The experiment hadn't really started because it was viciously stopped in its starting blocks before it could sprint. The Tory Parliamentary Party could not allow the experiment to gain any momentum.
Who is to blame for this mess?
Well, first of all, I do want to accept responsibility and say sorry for the mistakes that have been made. I wanted to act, but to help people with their energy bills, to deal with the issue of high taxes, but we went too far and too fast.
Do you feel humiliated?
I feel, first of all, that I did make mistakes, and I've been upfront and honest about that.
That must feel humiliating so early in office. Let's be clear though and blunt, your very vision for Britain is dead, isn't it?
The mini-budget was cataclysmic. The country was pushed beyond the borders of an economical minefield. The middle class were now acutely affected by the decisions made by the newly appointed political leaders. Kwarteng was sacked. The all-powerful Tory 1922 committee were burning the midnight oil, and Liz Truss looked more like a rabbit staring at the headlights of a car racing towards her than a UK Prime Minister owning her position. The game was over. But was it? Was the game really over? Or was the plan just unfolding and the game entering the realms of a half-time interval?
They're all gone. So why is she still here?
Mr. Speaker, I am a fighter and not a quitter.
The day after, Britain's third Conservative Prime Minister in 3 years was shouting at the opposition benches, declaring that she was not a quitter. She quit. 115,000 quid in the bank, every year for life. Personal security for life. A chauffeur-driven Bentley for life. The shortest tenure of any Prime Minister in British history. A record that will most certainly never be broken in our lifetimes. Humiliated, disgraced, mocked, and probably the subject of political satirists all over the world forever. If Liz Truss reaches the age of 81, the national lifespan average for a female, well, we will have forked out 3.1 million quid in cash on a woman who has turned the lives of millions upside down. The plan had worked. It was a success, fruitful, lucrative in every respect. Truss had completed a task, an insidious task, but a task all the same. And is she perplexed by the humiliation and the mockery? Not a jot. You see, there are people, special people, who belong to a certain breed of human who will do anything for 115 grand a year, for life. and some personal security. And yes, you got it, a chauffeur-driven Bentley. Peace out.
We're looking at Boris Johnson's plane landing back at Gatwick Airport. He was obviously in the Dominican Republic. He's returning this morning, just about to touch down. Hang on a second, they are just about to touch down at Gatwick. Shall we wait for that? Here we go, Boris Johnson coming back, we assume to run in the leadership race.